Hola, buen dia. It's me, Peppermint. And when I'm not on RuPaul's Drag Race or simply being New York City's sweetest diva, I'm tuned into the fabulously empowering Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice Power Hour, coming to you every weeknight at 7 p.m. live from our good old friends at the BRCSJ Virtual HQ via their Facebook page. Tune in tonight.
Need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers.
Social justice, power hour, power hour, power hour. Social justice, power hour, power hour, power hour.
Good evening to our friends on the East Coast. Good afternoon to our friends in the West, and good in-between time to our friends in those in-between spaces. Welcome, 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 my friends. Welcome to the Social Justice Power Hour. Welcome to the virtual headquarters of the Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice. My name is Robt Seda-Schreiber. I'm the chief actress here at the center, and your host for this evening, as I have been for the past year and 8 months. We've been doing this Power Hour every freaking weeknight since the pandemic started. Over 400 some odd shows, many of them very odd indeed, many of them very wonderful, many of them very meaningful, and tonight's show is no exception. Because we've done so many of these shows, so many extraordinary folks have dropped by. We're now doing Throwback Thursdays, which you have tuned into, and congratulations, you're going to enjoy it very much. This Throwback Thursday with the incredible, inspirational Kwame Alexander. What a great conversation this was, what an inspirational moment this was, what a meaningful time shared, what virtual communion. So you're going to dig it the most. I look forward to you seeing it because I truly think it's one of my favorite episodes. We were just, the repartee and snap and the feeling between us, the camaraderie and the spirit shared was just extraordinary. So if you're seeing it for the first time, enjoy, my friends. And if you're tuning in for the second time, you're going to catch all the subtle nuances. But before I let you go, before you get to witness this wonderful moment, I do want to tell you about some other wonderful moments that are coming up on the show, and actually a wonderful moment that happened just last night. Yesterday was my birthday. I turned 52. I'm doing a Facebook fundraiser, so if you are so inclined, please do donate. If you're not aware, we lost our space during the pandemic, so we're looking to find a new virtual community gathering headquarters. It's hard to be a safe space without a space. So if you could give whatever is within your hearts and whatever within your means, the link is right there in the comments section. You can click on it and make a difference for many, many people in our community. But last night, the extraordinary Adam Gopnik was with us, and he kind of turned the tables on me in honor of my birthday. And we had an extraordinary conversation where he interviewed me for a great part of it. And it was really interesting, and I was very, very touched by it. It was a very special gift, and I consider that conversation we had last night sacrosanct. So if you missed it, you might want to tune in. It was definitely a moment to share. And speaking of moments to share, tomorrow night we're all out celebrating my birthday. We have an incredible birthday bonanza. We have Harmonica Sunbeam. We have Missy Information. We have Jill Sobule. We have Glenn Pinnell, a.k.a. Mike Hotpants. We have John Doe from X. We have John Easdale from Dramarama. We have Maurice Carlos Ruffin. We have Charisma Price. We have Dante Stewart. The list goes on and on and on. And we have Emilio Delgado, a.k.a. Luis from Sesame Street. And a whole bunch of other incredible, talented folks dropping by to sing some songs, spit some poetry, speak some words, just maybe even a shout out. And some of the shout outs in and of themselves. Samson McCormick made me cry until he made me laugh. So come by tomorrow night to celebrate with us. And I promise you, you'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll definitely be moved to donate. So again, look to that fundraiser. We want a new home for our community. And then coming up on the show, these are just some highlights, my friends. Dr. Keisha Blaine, Until I Am Free, Fannie Lou Hamer's Enduring Message to America, another historical figure that doesn't get amplified enough, so we're looking forward to that conversation. Ron Norsworthy, incredible textile artist, Black, queer, intersectional, the very essence of what we embody here in the Power Hour. If you didn't see this cat's write-up in the New York Times a couple weeks ago, Sunday Times, it was beautiful. He is beautiful. We're going to have a beautiful time together. One Friday in April, Donald Entrim is going to be here to talk about his story of suicide and survival. It is all at once heartbreaking, heartwarming, and hopeful, so don't miss that one. The pain gap, how sexism and racism in healthcare kill women. This is a subject we have not delved into enough on the Power Hour, so I look forward to talking to Anousheh Hussein about this. We're doing Throwback Thursdays, as I said tonight, Kwame Alexander, poet Maggie Smith, and of course, inspirational speaker Minda Harts. We have the story of Black Lives Matter, Veronica Chambers. You've read her in the New York Times. You dig her stuff. Come hear her in wonderful conversation here in the Power Hour. Every Tuesday, we have queer yoga. Come be brought to virtual nirvana by our queer yoga master, Jasmani. Come take a breath with us, both literally and figuratively. Jill Sobule was out just a couple weeks ago for a benefit concert to help us find a new home, and we taped that on a VHS, and we plug it into the computer, and we're going to rebroadcast that for those of you that aren't in the area, didn't get a chance to see what was, by all accounts, one of Jill's best and favorite concerts ever. So we'll show that to you so all our community can see it. And then speaking of community, we have a live benefit concert with the incredible, wonderful Wesley Stace with his Late Style Band. The whole band's coming out for a benefit concert, live and in person. Very safe, my friends, very smart, masked and vaxxed, so no worries. November 12th here in Princeton. Come out wherever you are. Come on out, fly on out, whatever you need to do, be here for this special concert. All proceeds, again, go toward finding us a new home. So come see some incredible music. Come gather for community music, mirth making, and help a good cause at the same time. Links for that is also in the comment section. So we make everything easy for you to support us. So support us. Now, let's get to it. Tonight, Kwame Alexander. This conversation, this moment, this time with him, this virtual community was special. So I look forward to you witnessing it either for the first time or again. And I'll see you on the flip side to say goodnight. But until then, much love and respect, y'all, and enjoy the conversation. Kwame Alexander, our guest, a poet, educator, and New York Times bestseller author of 35. I must have read that wrong. No, 35. 35! Are you kidding me? This cat has written 35 award-winning books, including The Undefeated, The Crossover, Becoming Muhammad Ali, and his newest, which we'll talk about a lot tonight, Light for the World to See. Regular contributor to NPR's Morning Edition, recipient of numerous awards and honors, including the Coretta Scott King Author Honor, 2 Lee Bennett Hopkins Poetry Prizes, and 3 NAACP Image Award nominations. He's led cultural exchange delegations to Brazil, Italy, Singapore, and Ghana, where he built the Barbara E. Alexander Memorial Library and Health Clinic as part of Leap for Ghana, an international literacy program he co-founded. Gosh, I'm excited. We are so honored to have him here with us, so please join me in welcoming Kwame Alexander to our Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice Power Hour. Kwame, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here. I'm honored.
We're thrilled, and I know that you have such an incredibly busy schedule. If you don't mind, I always like to shout out the names of folks that are always so pivotal in helping us out, and your representative, Carmen, was so incredibly helpful in facilitating this wonderful thing happening, so I want to give a shout out to Carmen and wish her the best. Yes.
Shout out to Carmen, who's here in Texas. I'm in Texas visiting a friend, and woke up one day and there was no power. There's no water running right now, and so it's strange times, uncertain times. It seems like this past year has been, an an exercise in trying to, as Langston Hughes said, I've been scarred and battered, my hopes the wind and scattered, rain, snowed and frizzed me, sunned and baked me. I think between them they done tried to make me stop laughing, stop loving, stop living, but I don't care, I'm still here. And so we still here in the midst of all this, trying to make it better, trying to imagine a better world for our children.
And you have done this through your work. We had the first book of yours that we had at the center was The Undefeated. And what a beautiful, I don't want to call it a children's book because I feel it really traverses age, the spectrum. It's beautifully done. It's such a great confluence of words and image. How do you find that though? So you just said it, you just hit the nail on the head, right? Langston Hughes' words are so powerful because it seems like not even on a monthly or weekly basis, on a daily basis now, we seem to be bombarded with everything from the ridiculous to the tragic. And we don't know which way to turn. And oftentimes we find that literature and authors like yourself can find the words to help us through these times. But then as the author, as the person who's guiding us, how do you do it? How do you find that resolve?
Well, I think, Nikki Giovanni wrote a poem and a book called Quilting the Black-Eyed Pea. And the poem of that title it really speaks about this vision that America has of going to Mars. And I know we landed a rover on Mars today. I just saw that in the news. And she's talked about how going to Mars, to a place we have no idea what's going to be there, who's going to greet us when we get there, or who's going to, be offended by us landing there, what kind of food is going to be there, how are we going to eat, what's the oxygen, how are we going to breathe, and so all of these sort of unknowns. She talks about them in the context of Black people being kidnapped in Africa and being taken to America in this place where we have no idea who's going to greet us when we get there, or be offended by us, or how we're going to survive, or what we're going to eat. And so if you want to get to Mars, you got to send Black people. You got to send Black people. And of course, if you send Black people, you're going to send fried chicken. You're going to send some beer. You're going to send some cornbread. You're going to send some black-eyed peas. So it's called Quilting the Black-Eyed Pea. And, how your question, how do I find the resolve? That is what Black people are. That is what we do here in America. We have figured out how to survive, but not only survive, but how to thrive under conditions where we weren't supposed to survive. And so when I think about that, when I think about it in that context, when I think about my great-great-grandfather, March Corporal, who fought in the Civil War, and whose wife had to fight for his pension long after he died. When I think about him coming home from the Civil War and saving up enough money to buy land and build houses for his 11 kids. When I think about my mother and father growing up in Jim Crow South and somehow managing to get graduate degrees from Columbia University, when I think about what my ancestors have been through, we're still here. Like, they survived somehow. So me finding the resolve, I get sad, I get depressed, like most Black people in this country, when we looked at what happened this past year, and we pretty much said to ourselves, to each other and to white folks who listen, we've been through this. This is not new. We've been trying to climb up trying to pull ourselves up for hundreds of years. So this is yet another iteration of us having to do that. For me, as a writer, I find that through that inspiration of my ancestors, my familial and otherwise, I don't want to say easy is the word, but certainly I can't complain. I just need to get up and say something and do something. I have my ancestors created an opportunity for me to be able to do that. So I wake up and I write. I wake up and I put words on paper that hopefully are going to inspire, engage, enlighten, uplift, and empower. As I was growing up in Brooklyn, New York, my father was a writer and a publisher. And there was a magazine, a newspaper he used to edit called Black News. And I still remember the log line, the tagline. Front of the newspaper said Black News in big, bold black letters. And underneath it, it said, agitate, educate, liberate. Like those were the three. Now that stuck with me all these years later. But that was the goal of this newspaper, to agitate, to educate, and to liberate. I think every Black writer that has ever impacted me has always been about writing our way to freedom, which is what Black people have been trying to do since we were brought here, is find our way to freedom. So when you have that as a mission, you wake up each day and you do a little bit towards that. And so that's the resolve, I think.
Well, that makes sense. It reminds me of that quote, the truth shall set you free, but first it's going to piss you off. But do you find yourself, so you said something that really struck me, that your great-great-grandfather, and I'm not sure if I put enough greats in that, built houses for his 11 kids.
Right.
Do you picture yourself ever at the writing table? Those are your houses. Those are your kids writing those books, writing those words, those pages. Are those the houses you're building for your community, for your family?
No, I don't, but I'm going to use that from now on. I mean, what I do picture is that those were my houses, that legacy. It's coming from that legacy that allows me to do what I do today, that allows me to think that I can do this, that allows me to be confident in doing this, that allows me to move through life understanding that I am the greatest, not because I am better than anyone, but because no one is better than me. That comes out of a tradition and in the continuum and the tradition of my great-great-grandfather, March Corprew, building 11 houses. So I recognize that, and I understand there's a responsibility that comes with that legacy. And also, I guess it's DNA. It's an empowerment. Now, as it relates to your specific analogy, that's brilliant. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to use that. I guess it makes sense that these are my legacies that I'm leaving, that I'm building for not just my two daughters, but kids the world over, for young people the world over. If the world is not such a beautiful place sometimes, how is it going to become better? Well, the children are going to make it better. And in order for them to make it better, they got to be able to think it better. In order for them to think it better, they got to imagine it better. Where does that imagination come from? I posit that it comes between the pages of a book. And my goal as a writer is to infuse a literature that is first page turning and entertaining, but second is educational and inspirational and empowering, so that kids can begin to imagine a better world and make it so. So they can, as Langston Hughes would have said, so they can dream a world. So yeah, I guess these are my houses I'm building. I love it. That's got me inspired right now to go write something. I may have to take a break and come back.
Yeah, you can do it in 45 minutes, I promise.
Right.
And you can just give me a small credit, just a small byline, and no proceeds. I don't need any profit, no percentage, but you just want a small byline, just a little credit in the indicia,
Right.
All yours, my friend, a gift from me to you.
Wow, that's beautiful.
So when you write, and you've written over 35 books, right? Do you ever worry about being too prolific, or do you understand that it's all a matter of community? And so many of your books, and this is why I want to get to this a thread I want to get to in a minute, but so many of the books are so different, and you've chosen various co-authors and artists to work with, and there's such a different feel and tone and even voice to some of them, and it's pretty phenomenal. So how do you capture that? How do you sit down and you're like, okay, today Ali, right? And tomorrow I am, light for the world to see. And then the next day I am this, and the next day I am that. And I know that most of these books aren't written concurrently most of the time, but there are moments where they do overlap.
Right.
How do you find those different voices within yourself?
So look, and this ties back to the previous conversation about this wonderful metaphor that you are loaning me, which I'm going to happily borrow. And that is that I walk through life as a willing participant. Kids ask me all the time, like, Mr. Alexander, what inspires you? I am inspired by, the foot of snow that's outside, and I'm inspired by the toothache I've had for the past, that I had for 10 days because I had dental surgery. I'm inspired by my daughters and the love I have for them. I'm inspired by history. And I also recognize that inspiration does not have to just come through these eyes and these ears. That inspiration can come from other people. And so who you surround yourself with is so very important. The idea for this book, The Crossover, which won the Newbery Medal, was not my idea. An editor came up to me and said, Kwame, you should do a book about a boy who plays basketball who has a brother, and you should write the story in verse. I said yes. Because again, I walk through life as a willing participant. I say yes. The idea for this book was not my idea. I had written the poems. My editor was like, Kwame, you should, this is another editor. She's like, Kwame, we should really put those poems in a book. I was like, yes. December of 2019, I was in my bedroom, and I got an email from an editor at Little Brown. So it seems like the editors have the idea. I'm starting to see a pattern. And the editor said, James Patterson wants to write a book with you. I was like, okay. I said, well, I'm a little busy because I was under deadline for some other books, but thanks for the opportunity. And then a few minutes later, James Patterson calls me. He's like, Kwame, I want to do this book with you. It's on Muhammad Ali. Please consider it. I know how important Muhammad Ali is in your life. And he was, because when I was 11 and 12, my father, made me read the dictionary and the encyclopedia and his PhD dissertations, and I had fallen out of love with books. But then I discovered in our basement, in our garage, a copy of The Greatest, the autobiography of Muhammad Ali, and I couldn't put it down. And it sort of rekindled my love of books. So Patterson he tells me this story that he'd heard me give in a speech. He's like, we got to do this project together. And we don't want to write about Ali as an adult. We want to tell his story as a child, which nobody's done. So I was like, yes. So these ideas that come from other people, I am open to them. They resonate with me. They they stayed. I sleep with them, and I say yes. And eventually, I figure out a way to sort of delve into them and make them mine. But they come from others, and so I try to surround myself with a team of people who 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 have as much, if not more, hope and ambition and creative encouragement than I do for myself. And it works. So again, I say yes.
You're open to the universe.
The universe is conspiring to give us what we want. Are we paying attention?
That's a beautiful thought.
I am paying attention, man. I am walking through life paying attention. T.S. Eliot said, immature writers imitate, mature writers steal.
I love it. And I love the fact that the inspirations you talk about, they were not all positive things. A toothache for most of us would be, kick in the ass, and we'd be complaining about it each and every day. A foot of snow outside, especially in your situation right now, would be nothing but, a hassle for most folks. And I love the fact that what you're talking about is inspiration from all the things we experience throughout the day, throughout our lives, positive and negative things, the things that we might shun, we can turn around and find a way to find that aspect of it, which may not be good for us personally, but we can find a way to shine a light on it so it'll be good for others.
We don't let the no's define who we are. We try to say, we try to find the yes in them, and we say yes to ourselves. So this 10-day toothache, when you all read this next novel, I think it's the best thing I've ever written. And my dad says I say that about everything I write, which I probably do. But and it's set in 1859. And of course, having not lived in 1859, I can't write about the experience. I'm not an expert on the experience of having a toothache in 1859 and how to resolve that. But it was fun researching it. And it was great to be able to actually, write, to be able to take this pain and put it on the page. And the other thing it did is it really made this character that I'm writing about, this 12-year-old, even more whole, even more real. And what the fun part was, how is a kid in 1859 on the Gold Coast of Africa going to deal with a toothache? So that was the fun part, to figure that out through the research and through the imagination.
I love it. So I wanted, we're about almost halfway through, so I want to remind everybody that we're talking to Kwame Alexander, author extraordinaire of 35 plus books. Here's just 3 of them: Becoming Muhammad Ali, The Undefeated, which this is gorgeous, and the newest one, 1,000 Words on Race and Hope, Light for the World to See. We have a dedicated volunteer. Chris has been with us for many, many, many months, just as crazy as I am every night. Chris, thank you for your dedicated service and your community with us. Chris will be getting you links to hook up with Kwame on social media tools, The Devil We Know, and also a link to our bookshop.org where you can buy these books. And we use bookshop.org because they give back to independent bookstores in your local area when you purchase there. So we're big fans of that instead of the larger marketplaces online. So as you're inspired today, please go and buy these books and support Kwame, support the folks that come out and support us. And thank you, Chris, for all the work that you do. And here it is as a Chiron for all y'all. And there's Chris. We love you, Chris. And I see that you're all engaging each other in the comment section. So please enjoy each other's company there too. We love building toward the beloved community here. So I sense that your biggest problem is probably the converse of what most authors face. How do you shut out the ideas? It seems to me like you have this issue with, okay, I have to put that one down, and you probably have a pile like up to here of all these, oh, here's the next one. And how do you find yourself tamping down that inspiration, as it were?
I have a problem saying no. I have a problem saying no to other people. I have a problem saying no to myself. what I had to finally realize is that sometimes saying no means saying yes to myself. But yeah, I've got a plethora of ideas stacked. And I have been known to take on too many projects. And throughout the years, there have been times where, for the most part, it works. And I don't know, I haven't figured out how I'm able to juggle so much, whether it be working on a couple novels and a TV script and my NPR morning edition stuff and a musical I wrote for the Kennedy Center and a poem. It just gets done. I know a big part of it is I like to collaborate. So I know that there are other people around me who are working with me. But how I'm able to do all that, I don't stop to try to figure it out because I probably go crazy. 9 times out of 10, I get the work done. So the downside of saying yes all the time is that, that one time where it doesn't get done. And so I've certainly had some of those in my career, less and less as I get older and more mature and smarter. But, 2.5, 3 years ago, in 1 year, I had written 2 novels, 300-page novels. I had written a play. I had written a TV script. I had written countless articles for magazines and newspapers. I had written a lot, and I reached a wall, and I was overwhelmed, and I just shut down. I couldn't. I recognized that I was approaching shutdown to the point where I wasn't in control, and I like to be in control. And so I told my team, I said, look, I'm going to have to take a break. And my publishers didn't want me to have to do that because obviously they want me to keep writing books and keep making money, keep selling books. And I had contracts for books. But I just knew I was approaching that point. And I said, look, I need to take a year off without having a deadline. Because if I don't, everything's going to it's going to fall through the roof. That house was going to come tumbling down that I was building. We're back to the house. And everyone agreed and it worked out. And I came back, even more excited and enthusiastic about the writing. So to answer your question, I'm getting better at, like yesterday, someone asked me to write a TV show, and I said no. I thought about it, and I wanted to do it. Ultimately, I said no, and I was proud of myself. So I'm still learning, still growing. Because it was important for me to say yes to myself and my own sanity and honor the work that I'm already involved in. I don't know if that answered the question, but
no, 100%. Yeah. So here's the next piece of that thread is you are obviously such a strong, dynamic personality. You have such a strong inner voice. So how do you collaborate so well? How do you allow yourself to hear others? It's one thing to hear your toothache and see the snowdrift, and those are exterior things or interior things that deal with you and how you perceive things. But you collaborate quite often, and you do it quite well. How does that work? How does that dynamic work?
I got a friend named Tanisha, and she likes to say I'm a curator of people. Like I'm a curator of great people. I know how to bring people together. Like I've always been that leader, that director, of the stage. I've always been, the friend who had the idea. We're gonna do this, guys. We're all gonna ride our bikes here. I was the captain of the tennis team. Like I've always been that person. who likes to curate things and people and experiences to the benefit of society or the community. I get that from my mother and my father. You know, when I think of my experiences growing up in my house with both of them were principals of schools. Both of them were business owners. My father was a pastor of a church. My mother started the school in the church. Like, they always had these sort of roles and responsibilities that required them to bring people together, to galvanize, to come in unity, to bring community, to encourage community. That's what they did, and I grew up around that as a kid. And so I think, again, it's in my DNA. You know, my grandfather was the head deacon of the church. Like, the pastor is the pastor, but everybody knows that the head deacon runs the show. And he was one of the most respected men in the community. And that was my father's father. My mother's mother, everyone was at her house on Saturday. Everyone was at her house on Christmas. Everyone came to her. So I grew up amidst this. I think it's just only natural that I am now that person. And it just so happens I am doing it on a much larger scale when I think about the work that I did in Ghana as an example. I know you asked about the collaborating with writing, but this is the example I'm going to give you because I've worked with a bunch of writers and friends, and it's all worked out because I love them and I love doing it. And I have a respect for them and their writing, and they have apparently a respect for me, and that feels good. We trust each other. So I'll give you two examples, one on the writerly level and one on a larger level. So James Patterson is someone I had met a couple times at the West Palm Beach Book Festival. And the first time we met, we were both on the same program, speaking to 400 middle school students. And he was going on first and I was going on last. And the night before the event, the coordinators called and asked me if Patterson could go on last because he wanted to be the main attraction. And I said, sure. He's James Patterson, the world's best-selling author, no problem. So he went on. So I went on first, and the kids loved it, and standing ovation. And they're like, oh, we want more. And then Patterson came on, and the first words out of his mouth were, why did they make me follow Kwame Alexander? So we had a laugh about that. The second year was 1,000 high school kids in a gym. Now, high school kids are much more challenging as an audience because they don't think anything's cool. And second, you're in a gym, but the acoustics are horrible for an author. So he said, Kwame can go on last here. So I did my thing and the kids loved it. And we had lunch and we laughed about it. And so then, a couple years later is when he called and asked me to do the book. So we had that sort of interaction prior to the call. So as we're writing the book, he would write one chapter. He outlined the whole story, the whole Ali story. It was a 30-page outline, beginning, middle, and end. And then we sort of round robined it. He would write chapter 1, I would write chapter 2. He'd write chapter 3, I'd write chapter 4. And we just kept sending stuff back to each other. Well, at one point, he sent me something, and I thought it needed some editing, some work. So I sent him a note and I said, Jim, you should consider changing this. I think it would work better like this. Now, he's the world's best-selling author, hundreds of millions of books. His response to me was, Dear Kwame, I would never consider telling you how to change a poem. I don't know enough about poetry. Sincerely, Jim. But the cool thing is, he made the change because he understood that we have a responsibility to the kids to create the literature that's going to uplift them and not our egos. We both have huge egos, and his, justifiably, is the world's best-selling author. But again, I think it goes back to that quote. I am the greatest, not because I am better than anyone, but because no one is better than me. And we both understand that. That's why I asked him to change it. And that's why he said what he had to say to me, but then he made the change. I trust myself, and the people I work with trust me. And that's why I think it works. On a larger collaborative, my second and final example is in 2012, a friend of mine invited me to Ghana. She wanted me to help her help her celebrate the fact that she was becoming the queen mother of a village in rural Ghana in the eastern region. So I flew there, and it was my first time on the continent of Africa. And I had on these white pants, these white linen pants and some sandals. And I get picked up at the airport, and I'm thinking I'm going to be in like this really cool limousine or something. I'm in this sort of rinky-dink taxi with no AC. And it's like 100 degrees. And it's a 2-hour drive to the village. And halfway there, it starts pouring rain. And we get to the village, and the taxi driver drives me on this like dirt cratered road to get to the village. And we get to the village, and he drives me in the middle of an area where there are a bunch of tents and people seated under tents, which is apparently in my mind where the ceremony is about to take place, and people have been waiting for me. So taxi driver stops, I get out the taxi, and I step into a vat of mud, and my white linen pants are now brown. So they take me over to some seat. Some guys come over and start cleaning off my pants and rolling up my pants. They take my sandals and clean them and bring them back. And the ceremony starts, and it's a wonderful ceremony. And she's the queen mother of this village. And the next day, I go back to the village because I stay in a hotel that night. I go back to the village, and I read from a book I wrote about a rooster that stars a jazz band with Duck Ellington and Mules Davis. And as I'm reading this book to these 200 kids who are sitting on the floor of this schoolroom that has no ceiling and no walls, and it's red clay, and this, and through my Western eyes, it's an impoverished area. And it's an impoverished area. The look in the eyes of the kids is not like this is an impoverished area. It's just this is home. It's like the Nikki Giovanni poem, Nikki Rosa, where she says, one day somebody's going to write a poem about me and talk about how poor and unhappy I was and not know that I was happy the whole time. So I'm reading this book about this rooster, and as I'm reading it, a rooster walks up beside me. And it's like kind of cool and really fun. And so I finish it, and I asked the teachers, bring me another book to read to the kids, because I was enjoying it and the kids were enjoying it. And they said, we don't have any other books. And that's when sort of light bulb moment went off for me. When things aren't right or when things need to be done, you just do it. Like you want to make the world a better place. You can talk about it. You can write about it, and you can do something about it. I mean, that's what we learn from Dr. King and Bayard Rustin and John Lewis and we learned that you put in the work, that you do something. Because that's how we got over. We waded in the water. That's how we crossed over the River Jordan. We just did something. And then in that moment, I just say, well, I gotta build a library here. I don't stop to think about, you don't necessarily stop to think about how the weightiness or the largesse or the bigness of doing something like that. You just know you got to do it. Like I'm sure that the first, that I would have loved to have been in a fly on the wall for that first conversation when they were planning to march on Washington, or when they decided they wanted to do it. Like, well, let's march to Washington. Somebody just said it. Let's march. Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it. Like, when you first say it, you don't think about how big and how much work is involved. You got to do it. I knew I had to build a library because I understood what books and words did to my life. And I know what writing and literature, how it can transform people. And I felt like in the eyes, the hope and the ambition that were in the eyes of these kids, I wanted to give them some tools to sort of match that. And I felt like books were the way to do it. So I made a trip 3 months later with 5 friends. Here we go, collaboration. You thought I forgot. I'm bringing it back home.
I'm watching.
So I brought 5 friends over: David Miller, Renee Warren, Renee Flagler, Edward Lee, Tracy Childs McGee, and Lindsay. What's Lindsay's last name? I forgot Lindsay. I brought 5 friends with me, and we all went to Ghana, and we took about 1,000 books with us. And we took a closet. We literally took a closet in the school and turned it into a library. Cleaned it out, dusted it out, built bookshelves. Like, our bookshelves mirrored IKEA, And we didn't do it by ourselves. We did it with people in the village. We all sort of worked together and stocked the shelves with these books that we had donated by friends and colleagues back in the States. And that was the library. And then the next year we went back and we held a big literacy conference to teach teachers how to teach writing and reading and storytelling and poetry. And then we went back. Each year we went back, we took even more people, like 10 people this trip, 20 people this trip. So then I get the idea, okay, this closet isn't enough. We need a bona fide library. Who were my first librarians? My first librarians were my mother and my father. So I remember books everywhere in our homes, lining every wall, in bathrooms, in garages. There were books everywhere. So I'm going to create that type of atmosphere for these young people in this village called Kanko. So I devised this plan that we're going to build a library. And I start raising money. We must have raised about $40,000 from people in the States, friends and librarians, some of whom are probably on this call right now. And I, found a designer. One of my librarian friends had found a designer, and I want to say she was in the Midwest, and she designed the library for free. So we just had a collective effort, again, curating people. And had a friend in Ghana named Amefa who was overseeing the project. And so, no, she wasn't overseeing it at that point. We didn't have anyone overseeing it in Ghana. Only we were working directly with people in the village. And so a couple of years passed and the library was to be opened. It was the summer of 2017. And so I decide I'm going to take librarians and teachers with me for this unveiling of this library, this ribbon cutting. So 22 librarians and teachers from across the United States sign up to go. We go to Ghana. I had been seeing pictures of the development of the library, the columns and how beautiful it was, and it was painted. And we get to Ghana, and we check everyone into their hotel, and I go to the village to check on the library to make sure things are okay before the next day's ribbon cutting. And when I get there, there's no roof on the library. And the floor inside the library hasn't been put down yet. And there's no furniture. And so there's no shelves and there's no books. The library is maybe 50% complete, and we're supposed to be cutting the ribbon on the following day. So now I'm freaking out. So I go back to the hotel. I don't sleep at all. And on the way to the village the next day for the ribbon cutting, I tell people this is the ribbon cutting for phase 1 of the library. I got to think on my feet. You're planning something this big, you got to be able to, think on your feet. And so all 22 people are like, cool. And we have the ribbon cutting. Everybody's looking beautiful, and the kids are there, and the columns have been painted with the Dinker symbols, and the doors put on, and they have sort of a makeshift roof put on, and everyone sees the vision for it. And so after we finish this wonderful ceremony, everyone gets back on the bus to head back to the hotel, and I have a meeting with the villagers, and I say respectfully, what happened? Why wasn't the library finished? And they said, it is okay. It is okay, Kwame. It will be done. It will be done. And I'm like, no, it wasn't done. I don't understand. Did you all not want the library? And their response was, we could have used a health clinic. And of course, light bulb moment. In my quest to do right, to do good, in my spirit of collaboration, I forgot the most important thing. Come in unity, community. I never asked them what they wanted. I told them they needed books. And of course, we know that healthcare is a literacy issue. You cannot read a book if you're not here. And so I went home understanding, learning at this stage in my life where I thought I had understood that collaboration and community and I needed to learn some more, apparently, and I still do. That was that big lesson. And so we went back home and we regrouped, and a couple months later, this also happened to be the year where I was writing all those books that I talked about earlier. And so one of the books that I was writing was a book called Rebound, about a boy who loses his father, and he's got to figure out how to get his life back, how to rebound from that. And so as I'm writing, and the book was due in April or May. And we're now in August. And so this, of course, was also the time where I said, wait a minute, you're like 5 months behind your deadline, like you've missed it. So something's happening. If you don't make a change, you're going to really spiral down. Your house is going to fall creatively. You're not going to be able to produce. It was shortly after this book was turned in where I sort of made that determination that I need to take some time off. But the book was due in May or April, and I finally got an extension, like my third extension, to August 31st. And so around August 25th, I've been working on the book diligently, trying to finish it. And I get a call from my father saying, you need to come home. Your mother's sick. So I drive home to Chesapeake, Virginia, a 3-hour drive. I get to my mother's house and she's being put in an ambulance and she's going to the hospital. And I get in the ambulance with her and I'm talking to her, and I go to the hospital with her and they check her in, and she's She's asleep, and I'm in the room sitting in the chair, and I'm working on the book because it's due in 5 days. And the next morning, she wakes up. We talk a little bit. Her brother comes. She talks to him. She eats a little bit something, and she sleeps. And then I'm in the chair working on the book because it's due in 4 days. And then the next day she has a stroke, and so I'm feeding her. She can't feed herself. She's not really eating, and she can't talk, and she can't. And then she's just incommunicable. And so I'm just sitting there while she's on a breathing machine, and I'm working on the book because it's due in 3 days. And my agent says, Kwame, you don't have to finish the book because your mother's not doing well. You can focus on her. And I'm thinking, no, the book's due. I've got to make the deadline. And the next day, the doctors come in, and I'm working on the book because it's due in 2 days. And they tell me, look, there's nothing we can do. You can take her home if you want. And I'm thinking, take her home. What will she want? Will she want you to do that, or she wants to stay here? And I'm thinking, this is it. My mother's leaving. And I grab her hand and I say, look, if you can hear me and you want to go home, squeeze my hand. And she squeezes it. So I'm like, she wants to go home. And so the next day, I press send on the manuscript Rebound about a boy who's learning how to rebound from the most devastating thing that's ever happened to him. And I take my mother home, and that night she passes away. And I realized that I needed to write the book to be able to get on this new journey that I'm now going to be on, trying to rebound from the woman who taught me how to use my words, who taught me how to be confident, who taught me that I am the greatest, who taught me to say something and do something, who taught me to say yes to life. And the next summer, we opened the library and the health clinic, and I name it after her. None of that happens without collaboration and community.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that story, and thank you so much for sharing so much yourself. Another thread that runs through everything that you've talked about tonight, and I know that I hit it out of the park right at the first, talking about houses and your books being houses, and I'm going to stick to that, and that's all for you. But it reminds me also of what Kurt Vonnegut used to say. I too grew up in Brooklyn, and we would have these big family gatherings, and everyone would gather at my poppy's house, and we'd all be together. And we don't have that much anymore. In families and society, there's just not the same allowance for it, and especially this past year. And something that Vonnegut wrote really struck me. He said that divorce is usually a matter of, we are a tribal people. We from the caves to the tenements, we are a tribal people. And we've lost that aspect of our community, of our society, of our families. And what we lack in relationships when we find our partner is we want them to be 100 people to us. And he says that every divorce should end just by each partner saying, I'm sorry you couldn't be 100 people for me.
Wow.
Your books are 100 people for every reader that gets their hands on them.
I'm not usually speechless, but I get that. I get it. I would imagine I'm putting my great-great-grandfather and my grandmothers, and my mother and my father, and my good friends, and Langston Hughes, and all the librarians I know, and all the kids in the village. I'm putting them all into these books. Like, they are fueling and feeding these books. They are helping me build these houses. So I get it. Wow. That's powerful.
Well, we've come full circle. So you're building these houses, but houses mean nothing unless there are families inside of them.
My goal is to change the world one word at a time. And the way that I do that is by trying to write books for kids the world over to see themselves in the books, mirrors, and to see each other in the books, windows. And so we got mirrors and windows and houses. We're constructing something that is life-giving and life-saving. And I think this work that we do, yeah, it's got to be entertaining. It's got to be page-turning. There's a reason why it's New York Times bestselling, but it's also got to be empowering. It's got to be uplifting.
100%, 100. So you and I writing a book together, it seems. I think we're all there.
You are a master at this, my friend.
Oh, it's coming from you. That is high praise indeed. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your energy and your time and your spirit tonight. This has been the epitome of delightful. It has been entertaining and empowering. It has been meaningful. It has been fabulous. It has been everything that I dreamt the Power Hour could be. And you have fulfilled all of that and so much more. And thank you so much for sharing this time with us.
Thank you. I am honored and appreciative.
I hope that you will come back when your next book comes out, which seems to me probably in a week and a half.
When I have more light for the world to see, I will be back, my friend.
All right. Good luck with your buildings and best to your family. Much love, my friend.
It's 8 o'clock.
Everybody, that is Kwame Alexander, and we have had such an incredible evening together. And that's not just because of Kwame and myself having truly a phenomenal conversation. And that's on him. I'm a sidekick at best. But that's all y'all who came out tonight. There were hundreds of you watching. There were hundreds of you participating, sharing thoughts in the comment section, but also just listening and empowering us with your presence. Thank you very, very much. I hope you will come back to the Power Hour. As I said, we do this every single weeknight, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And if you were inspired by Kwame, here are just some of the books that we discussed tonight. Becoming Muhammad Ali with the great James Patterson, The Undefeated, and this, his most recent, Kwame Alexander, 1,000 Words on Race and Hope, Light for the World to See. Chris is putting up a link for you to purchase these books at our bookshop.org link, and please do. And also, I encourage you not only to buy a copy for yourselves, buy a copy for a friend, buy a copy for an enemy who will become a friend, and perhaps most importantly, as Kwame himself talked about libraries tonight, make sure your local library have these books. Because as much as we want to support Kwame and all the authors that come up on the Power Hour, libraries are conduits for a lot of people who can't afford to buy the books. And it's their way to be inspired and to see themselves represented, especially in books like Kwame. So make sure you call your local library, make sure they have these books available to the community as well. And if they don't, you ask them just to purchase a copy. His stories are buildings, and his words, the people inside. His books create communities. I love how he distilled the very essence of what Kwame Alexander does and how he inspires in that moment. And those moments are what we look for at this Power Hour. And we also look for you, my friends, to be with us. So please do come back to us. We are here 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, every single frequent weeknight. So please, the Power Hour is here for you. So please be here with us. Until soon, much love and respect, y'all. Be good to each other. Be good to your families, chosen or otherwise. And most especially, my friends, please, be good to yourselves. You need it, and we need you here with us.
We need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers.